Good evening, everyone, and a very warm welcome to today's TiE Talks session on NFT. Sandip, can you please open the presentation? And today we have Ms. Ishanee, who is going to discuss and explain more details on digitalization, application, trading, and use cases of NFT today. And Ishanee is the associate of IOSG Ventures, and a very warm welcome, Ms. Ishanee.
Thank you.
And thank you once again, Anil sir, for moderating today's session.
Thank you.
And Mr. Anil Kumar is the managing director of Great Sports Tech Limited. And he has over 16 years of sales, marketing, and business management experience in India and in USA. Great Sports Tech has executed some of the most prestigious and innovative sports infra projects over the last 15 years across 8 countries in South Asia. And Great Sports also was awarded many prestigious awards. One of them was India's top 100 SMEs and Best Professional Service, which is given by FICCI. And Mr. Anil is also a national level sportsman in athletics and in handball. And thank you, Anil sir, for moderating. And over to you, Anil sir.
Thank you, Pragnya. Good evening and welcome everybody. Welcome Ishanee Nagpurkar, first of all, and of course all our TiE charter members from the Hyderabad chapter, associate members, and if we have attendees also from other chapters and forums, a warm welcome to all of you. So Ishanee, thanks very much for joining us from Singapore this evening. I know it's fairly late in the evening today for you already. So Ishanee is associate at IOSG Ventures, which is an early stage venture capitalist firm. She graduated from National University of Singapore in 2019, studied civil engineering, but of course now her field seems to be fairly quite removed from the mundane civil engineering onto really very cutting edge technologies. And so she's, as it says here, an early stage an analyst at IOSG, investing in deep tech startups in Southeast Asia, like robotics and AI ML. She's also, her research areas include NFTs, of course, which is the topic that we're going to discuss today. And DeFi lending. I really don't know anything about DeFi lending. I think Ishanee will have to schedule another session with you to understand more about DeFi lending and yield aggregating and gaming and social tokens. So certainly there seems to be a lot more to the IT world than some of us are aware of, and we'll probably keep calling upon your expertise quite often. And of course, some of our investment portfolios already include Unicly and D-Trade and Illuvium, etc. So thanks for joining us, Ishanee. With this brief background, I leave it over to you. The format for those who've joined in this evening, the broad format that we are planning on is that Ishanee and I discussed that the profile of the attendees here and what we would like to know. Considering that there is a lot of confusion about what NFT actually is. Different people have various conceptions or misconceptions about NFT. So we will ask Ishanee to clarify from a very fundamental level as to what is an NFT really. It's sometimes spoken in the same breath as with blockchain and with cryptocurrency, and so she'll help us clarify that. She'll probably do a presentation about 15-20 minutes. She has a few slides that she put together based on what are its application and use cases, how does it work, who administers NFT globally, what are the opportunities as well for IT and ITES companies here in India and among those who are attending, to try and see if this is something that they could probably be looking at future ventures in. So Ishanee will make a presentation, a few slides covering most of these over the next 15-20 minutes. And then we'll try to keep another 15-20 minutes for some Q&A. So, viewers are welcome to go ahead and type in their questions in the chat box, and we'll try to pick some questions that are widely applicable and Ishanee said she'll be glad to clarify all of them. So over to you, Ishanee. We look forward to the presentation and then to the detailed Q&A.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks a lot for the introduction as well. I really appreciate this, and always happy to kind of, in the future, if you need any kind of clarifications on Web3, always happy to help. I think perhaps a good place to start would be in clarifying like what NFT stands for, right? So it's non-fungible tokens. I think one of the biggest misconceptions or questions that a lot of people would have around, as you mentioned, how is it connected to blockchain? How is it connected to other cryptocurrencies? To clarify, all the NFTs, every single thing that you see or hear about, each one of them is basically based on blockchain. It's a token representation that lives on the blockchain. All the currencies that live on the blockchain are considered cryptocurrencies because, well, they're fungible, first of all, in nature, which means one Bitcoin is the same in value as another Bitcoin, just like 1 rupee is same in value as another 1 rupee. So they're fungible. And they're cryptographically secured by the network, which is why they're called cryptocurrencies. With non-fungible tokens, they're also a form of crypto asset, not a currency though. They're a form of a crypto asset or a digital asset. And they're considered non-fungible tokens because one value of one non-fungible token is not the same as another non-fungible token. What defines a non-fungible token is the fact that it's unique in properties. So it can be a different kind of like the metadata that resides on that token can be different. The token's history, maybe it's owned by Elon Musk. That's something that can be fascinating to a few people, and that makes it a unique kind of token itself. But the idea of non-fungible token is to make sure that you have a token representation of something that is not fungible, which means it's unique in nature. So the first bull run that we saw the last quarter or so was the idea was that you're tokenizing social experiences, things like digital art, things like music, merchandise. If you can move on to the next slide. Hello.
Ishanee, maybe until these slides are over, the voice is breaking sometimes. Maybe you could try with the video off. We'll see if that helps. Ishanee, are you able to hear me? Ishanee? I think she'll probably
yes,
dial
sir.
back in.
Just checking with her. Yes.
Sure, yeah. Sure, no problem. Yeah, so while we wait for Ishanee to join back, I didn't
Hello.
know, some of
Can you
the
guys
small
see
trivia.
me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect, Ishanee. Yeah, please welcome back. Now I was saying that, while we we're just waiting for you to join back, a very quick trivia that I thought would be of, interest to the attendees here. I don't know if many people have heard of, I'm sure this was probably going to be one of your examples too about Beeple. I hope you'll be touching upon that. It beats me that a piece of art, actually electronic art, so to say, sold for some $70 million or something, over 500 crores, and even a tweet, Jack Dorsey's tweet, has become really very famous. $2.5 million for a tweet, I believe. So yes, now that you're back, Ishanee, over to you again. Maybe we'll try without the video.
Yeah, sorry about that. Not sure what went wrong.
No
But
problem.
I think I'm back. So yeah, as I was saying, like I'm not sure when I really got cut off, but maybe I can just quickly summarize what I was saying in the previous slide, which was that
actually until the start of this slide you were okay, Ishanee. So maybe this slide on it's fine. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So yeah, I think like to Mr. Anil's point over here, which is that you have these electronic arts that you can't see, that you can't touch, you can only see, and a lot of these kind of pieces of content going for multi-million dollars, which is pretty interesting. We've seen like a huge kind of hype run there, bull run there. The market it kind of exploded the last few months. I think some of the notable like highlight reel of 2021, I've tried to kind of summarize there. So Beeple, who's a crypto artist, a very famous digital artist, actually sold his 5,000 pieces of his art as one piece of art, as like one big JPEG file for almost $69.3 million USD. And Jack Dorsey, the founder of Twitter, sold his tweet for like almost $3 million there. Mark Cuban was basically all the hype. He really tried to hype up NFTs as well. And he was like a key influencer with like some platforms like Rarible. And then some of the marketplaces like Dap Labs, which like OpenSea, and companies like creative studios like Dap Labs raised like tons of amounts from VCs, some crypto VCs. One being like Andreessen Horowitz, for example. I think they did rounds for OpenSea and Dap Labs.
Ishanee, you are breaking again. Maybe we'll turn off your video and maybe the bandwidth might help.
Okay, can you hear me now?
No, we cannot still hear you.
I mean, we can hear you, but very faint. Maybe you can try seeing if it helps with the.
Okay, is this any better?
Sort of, but it can be better, I guess.
Sorry about that.
No problem. We will try and manage whatever best you can without the video. I think we'll just try and go with that.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks a lot. Maybe if we can just move on to the next slide. So yeah, to the point of what are some of the use cases of NFTs. Digital art was obviously the first one to be monetized. So all the creators, the digital artists, they came together and started selling their pieces of artwork on these marketplaces. Ticketing. So because on a blockchain, all of your tokens are immutable, and you can't duplicate something. To duplicate a token, you need to have two different types of tokens. But it's still very difficult to duplicate. If like it's very easy to tell apart which one is the correct kind of the real one versus the fake fake NFT. So for ticketing, I think it's a great idea, and this is something that DevCon, which is one of the biggest blockchain conferences in the world, has been issuing these NFT based tickets for their conferences since 2018. Lastly, I think the biggest another big market that we know of is like gaming. So as you know, all of the games that you probably your kids play, they're all on the PS4. Your Sony or any other platform, your Nintendo, they own all of the gaming assets on these games, or the gaming studios on these assets. And when you stop playing this game, that's it. All the time, effort, and sometimes even money that you've put or your kids have put into these games, basically it's all lost, right? It's for entertainment, and then it's gone. But with NFTs that are the gaming assets, you can actually own these assets, which means all of the time, all of the money that you've spent, and all of the efforts you've put into, playing these games and creating all of your avatars with these fancy skins and everything. I'm sure, like, if you guys have like kids, they will definitely understand this. All of the lingo, like all of those can be owned by you, and you can even like lease it out. For example, you can sell it, you can lease it out, so you can actually make money out of just playing games, beyond what just esport tournaments currently look like. And there's actually been an amazing documentary on play to earn model in the Philippines with Axie Infinity, a project that actually showed that a lot of people were able to pay back their student loans by playing these kind of crypto games as well. The other projects that we know of and we've personally invested like at IOSG is with trade finance. So all of your trade finance logs, the ledger basically needs to be documented, right? All of the contracts in it also needs to be documented, the invoices, everything. So if you can just convert each one of these contracts into a NFT, what you're effectively doing in the future is you're you're trying to de-risk any future legal risk, any future kind of risk that in like any kind of future accountability risk as well. So that's another big use case for this. Lastly, merchandising is a big one. So you've seen in the last 3 4 months, you have Disney, Marvel, Warner Brothers, like NBA, all of these kind of brands who own tons and tons of IP and digital rights have been coming in to merchandise their products into NFTs and then sell those NFTs. The reason is very simple. NFTs is a great distribution mechanism. And then with merchandising of their products, of like these IPs, you're effectively just diversifying your revenue streams. So it's as simple as that. There are also some projects that I've looked into real estate, but then I think that one is still pretty nascent at this stage. Yeah, as you can see, the market size for some of these use cases can be really big. So digital art is one of the biggest one. Merchandising and gaming are also equally big. I think with real life assets, it's just too difficult to actually accurately measure. Um, yeah, I've also provided some like projects, like names of some of the projects who address these questions. But then maybe we can just move on for now, unless you'd like me to, talk about it in detail. So what does the NFT tech stack really look like? When do you interact with them? So at the very infrastructure layer, you have your blockchains. So Ethereum, Flow, Vax, and Zora are some of the different blockchains. Each one of them has a standard. So an ERC 721 standard or an ERC 1155 standard effectively means that any token that is minted using these smart contracts are um, NFT tokens. They're unique in nature or they have very limited supply. Next, you have marketplaces, creator development kits, and then different kind of primary issuance, like projects that issue these NFTs in the first place. I won't touch in too many detail. Again, free to have like answer any of your questions if you have around this, but I'll just quickly move on to the next stage, which is like aggregators, curators. Okay, then from the oh, okay, from the aggregator curator, the third layer is that you have all of these communities that are being built around single NFTs. You have vaults and galleries where you can actually display your digital exhibition. So you can have digital exhibitions for all of the art pieces that you've bought. And there's like prime real estate in these virtual lands that you can buy for, a premium or something, but then the entire metaverse, as they call it, will be able to see your project. And lastly, more on the financial side of things, which is important, which is like predictions market to understand how do you fairly price this, price an NFT, and yeah, how do you do more with like lend out these assets, for example, and get a loan against it. So that's kind of the last layer, which is currently being built by multiple projects. Maybe we can move on. Yeah. So what are some of the aspects that have come up from the layer two, right? From the implications of having this NFT technology. You have a lot of people who creators. So it's really just for artists at this point of time who are benefiting the most. Anyone. So anyone who's a musician, anyone who's a painter, designer, graphic artist, all of these guys have been like partnering up with these platforms and issuing their own like NFTs and collections. You have generative art, which is algorithmic art, which means the artwork is really it's being created algorithmically, and there's a built-in scarcity for different kind of features in it. So like your special edition Pokemon cards, for example, some of them are just super limited, super scarce, and they have a lot of value as well. Um, And then you have metaverses. So this is again somewhat similar to gaming, I would say. And lastly, merchandising, which is like Top Shop and Genies, etc. Maybe we can go to the next slide. Yeah, so I think some of these I've already spoken about, but then the new concepts that have come about because of NFTs is like virtual real estate. People really want to pay money for a virtual real estate. Someone spent like $1 million acquiring 8 pieces of virtual land, which is effectively just pixels on a board on your web page, right? So, but people have been shelling out tons of money into buying these kind of prime pieces of virtual real estate. And I think I've already discussed some of them. So the virtual galleries over there, you can see to the bottom left is a picture of that. You have your avatars like your Bitmojis or your like Snapchat emojis that you can see, but then you also own them, and then generative art and DAOs and communities in general. Can we go to the next one? Yeah, so I think at this point of time, the standard business model across the value chain really comes from selling, like trading of these assets, right? So anytime any of these assets get traded on OpenSea or SuperRare or any of the other marketplaces, they enjoy some kind of a commission. So let's say a 5% transaction fee or a 2% transaction fee. All the creators, because it lives on a blockchain and it's immutable, you can actually code into each NFT how much royalty you want to accrue from every single thing. So that means if I've issued an NFT and I've said that I want 5% royalties on every single sale, as a creator, in the future, no matter how many people go ahead and sell this item, I will always get 5% of the cut. So higher the price of my NFT, like obviously the more money I make even after a primary issuance. Um, yeah, I think all of them actually work on a very similar commission-based, like transaction fee-based business model. Some of them also provide like trading engine and white label platforms. So that's another kind of way to monetize on the trading of these assets. If we move forward. So I think like a good question that a great question that a lot of people actually usually ask is, okay, so you have all of these NFTs, you know, that are coming in, and there's so many of them being minted all the single time. But then where's the value, right? Long-term value, it's a bubble, it's gonna pop. I think everyone basically embraces that. I don't think most people will argue that it's not a bubble. It is or it was a bubble. Things are slowing down now, but then in the long run, just like any kind of artwork, right? Like out of all the artists that were back there in the 18th century, 19th century, 20th century, you only know a handful of them. And that's like the top 1% are going to be kind of revered, and the top 1%'s artwork will be kind of priced super high. I think it's similar to that with NFTs at this point, especially for digital artworks. The top 1% will always accrue 100% of the market value, until like you have NFTs that have more kind of real world assets included in them. And if we move forward. Yeah, what are the challenges for some of the projects right now from a technology perspective? Scaling is pretty difficult. Transacting on the blockchain is super expensive, especially Ethereum. But then there's some kind of projects that are coming up who are trying to solve this. So Polygon, which is actually an India-based team, and it's getting a lot of popularity in the last few months. Polygon has a lot of the NFT projects that help, like it's an infrastructure, it's like a middleware layer, a side chain, which essentially makes transactions just faster and cheaper. Then from a technology point of view, if you have an asset on Ethereum, you can't really move it to the Bitcoin network, or you can't move it to the Polkadot network. So that's more of a technical, very crypto focused problem. Legally speaking, I think digital rights management can be difficult because you don't want to be selling fraudulent um, fraudulent like artworks from like, I don't know, like Warner Brothers or someone, because you want to avoid the legal recourse that might happen if you do so. So I think that's another trouble. Content. So for digital artists, you want to buy, from a buyer's perspective, you want to buy the artwork of digital artists who are credible and legitimate and not like fraudulent or anyone scammy, because you obviously want your piece of content to have a lot of value in the long term. And lastly, financial. How much money should you actually be paying for something like this? So yeah, so that's some of the like main challenges and bottlenecks for the projects. We can move forward. And yeah, I actually just had my regulations for NFTs in US, Singapore, and then Japan. I think India is just a super hybrid and complicated mixture. So I don't really attempt to try and figure that one out because that one keeps changing ever so often. But then in the US, when you have these NFTs, I think they are taxable events, especially when you profit off of it. And you also have like for some of the collectible NFTs like that are super rare and that have really high values. So like something that's like example for the Beeple, the one that got sold for almost $70 million. If the resident was a US citizen, they would have had to almost pay a tax of about 28%. But then Metakovan, who's an Indian who actually lives in Singapore, because he lives in Singapore, he doesn't have to pay any capital gains tax. I think everyone here, as entrepreneurs, know about Singapore's super lenient tax incentive structures. Similarly, in Japan as well, I think you do have some kind of tax implications, but not as many as the US. Um, Moving forward, yeah. Actually, that's kind of like it. Like, happy to take questions now.
Sounds good. That was a good presentation, Ishanee. Thank you. I can't claim to have understood all of it. Certainly, some of the things went way above my head, but we have many of my learned colleagues here, are more into technology, and I'm sure it was very appealing to them, and certainly made a big headway in terms of understanding that. Uh, I know while we are collating some questions, we already have two or three. I thought from the presentation, just some top of the mind points that hopefully are also of interest to others. And this is in no particular order. There's huge investment raised by OpenSea and Dapper Labs, you said. So typically, what do they do with this investment? In what way are in what is this funding going for? What are they looking to expand further into? Because I want to try and see if anything that an OpenSea or a Dapper Labs is doing is of relevance to some of the IT companies here in India, whether they are mature companies, whether they are into IT services or IT products, if there are applications to be built around NFTs, or if it's for a startup. So trying to just correlate that to see if there is an opportunity in the space for a business model around it.
Yeah, so I think with OpenSea, it's a secondary marketplace. So it's really like acting as an exchange for these NFTs. So that's a lot of the funding will definitely go towards product development, getting more people on board, getting newer projects on board, and probably in the future improving functionalities. So things like, instead of having to buy crypto when you want to buy a piece of NFT, you can probably just use your fiat currencies. Some of those things like that. As for Dapper Labs, it's a creative studio, so I will expect some of the cash to go towards acquiring IP and licenses. So I know those can be like a few $1 million deals, and then for the others, it can just be like creating more like products on the blockchain or creating more collections, creating games, creating it's like a creative studio, right? So anything creative that they feel they want to publish and make money off of, any type of content, that is what they will monetize. As for IT and IT infrastructure, I think with NFTs, uh, NFT is a technology per se, right? Like you can't add it to your Amazon Web Services or anything like that and make use of it. I think it's a completely different domain. Like that's why you call it Web 2.0 versus Web 3.0. Some things you can use it for is like tracking credentials, for example. So if you have some credits, if you have any copyright, any kind of IP stuff that you want to track, or you want to provide a platform for people to be able to track that in a manner which is, very conflict resistant, without any conflicts. I think that then it's a great technology to explore further.
Good to know. So for a marketplace like an OpenSea, is that something that that could evolve into just a single large monopolistic marketplace, or do you think there is space for multiple such marketplaces to come in and coexist?
I think there's definitely place for people to come in. Absolutely, but I think OpenSea has just done this so very well at this point of time. So it's more like network effects. It's like, can you have another Facebook? Sure, you can, but it probably won't have the same kind of effect. Yeah.
So they are the Bitcoins of the NFT field right now.
They don't extract all of the value.
Mind share and mind share and just the domination that they have, perhaps.
Yeah, certainly.
I'll just go to a couple of questions that we have from some of the participants here. So I'll go in the order that they came in. So Murli had a question. NFT by name, it says is non-fungible, but all the applications seem to be very similar to any tokens that are in circulation. How is this different, and why is it non-fungible?
I mean, you can't put Bitcoin, you can't put like a piece of artwork on Bitcoin and sell it. You can sell it in exchange for Bitcoin, but then that piece of artwork will still, at the end of the day, like be separate from the token itself. So I think with NFTs, what you're trying to do is have this data, like the content itself, be part of your token and have ownership really. I think largely the thesis for NFT is ownership more than anything else.
Okay, thank you. And Sanjay Jasrani has a question. He says, how should we engage with NFTs? How do we buy NFTs? Are there an asset class? Of course, some of those I think came through in your presentation later on, but just to continue on, he asked, how do I build a business around NFTs? Say I am a startup dealing with artists and artisans who are creating unique products. So how do we go about with NFTs?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think if you want to buy NFTs, I would highly recommend exploring some of the marketplaces. OpenSea is a secondary market, but then if you want to make sure you buy something, you're spending money on something that is curated piece of artwork, check out SuperRare. When it comes to, because you're dealing with artists, I think I would also recommend taking a look at this startup called Rocky. It's ROCKII, if I'm not wrong. So it deals with musicians, and the issue that the problem that it's solving is the fact that it allows fans of these musicians to fund their next record. So you're basically making sure that these record labels that have had so much like legal conflicts with musicians and like over the years have just garnered such a bad reputation in terms of that they're not fairly distributing profits or sharing profits. This is one way that the artists, the musicians can basically, get 100% or 90% of accrue all of the 90% of the value of their labor, rather than giving half of it to record labels for like no reason. And it can be funded by their fans.
I understand. So going back to his question, so this is not really an asset class as much as perhaps a form of how you may buy an asset like a digital art. So Sanjay, I hope that's answering the question. Raghu had another question. How are these regulated in various jurisdictions? India is yet to figure out regulations for cryptocurrency. How are these profits taxed? I know you did touch upon those, but maybe a quick clarification as well. Okay.
Yeah, so I think how are they regulated? I think the idea of Web 3.0 is very like it's an antithesis of regulation, but I do think like the US has done like a pretty good job in making sure they're not forbidding it, which only leads to kind of more people wanting it more. I think they've kind of tried to embrace it, but they've made sure that it fits with the retail, like the SEC, it follows all of the SEC's instructions for the retail investors. So I think in India, this is obviously not there. When it comes to how are these profits taxed, I think the way they tax it is just like anytime you have a taxable event, right, where you're accruing profit, you're selling it at an appreciation, then you basically have no choice but then go to IRS and claim it. Sure, you can try and waive all of those things, you can go away from it, but then like, do you want that legal trouble at the end of the day? Yeah.
I understand. Rakesh Gupta has a question. He says, what kind of assets, digital and real, do you foresee trading as NFTs 5 years down the line? The current use cases look basic.
Yeah, I mean, with any kind of new technology, obviously your first use cases will be super basic, right? And then as more developers come in and work on the problem, you have these more complicated systems, like the Moore's law, basically. But in this case, I think in terms of digital, so we've already seen a boom with digital art creators, like helping the creator economy, as well as gaming infrastructures, providing people ownership, giving it back to the people is one thing. As far as real, so we've personally invested in some of these projects, right? Like I mentioned, trade finance, who actually use NFTs or tokenized assets to make sure to track all of their invoices, to track all of their contracts and stuff. So this is already something that's being implemented that a lot of the companies that obviously I cannot publicly disclose are using. So it's there, it exists. I think people are just trying to have fun with it at this point. There's also a very interesting project if you guys would like to check out, which is Alethea.ai, also an investment. But then what they're doing is you have these static NFTs and they're kind of putting in GPT-3 enabled, the NLP kind of that backs up the entire GPT-3 model. It gets embedded into your NFT, which means your NFT can actually talk back with you. So it can become a voice assistant. So yeah, there's a lot of development in the space. It is a big space though.
Okay. Next one, Malay Kundu has a question, and this is something we spoke of as well a couple of days back, Ishanee. He's asking, to what extent do you get copyright with NFT? For example, if you buy the NFT to a video clip, would you have exclusive rights to the YouTube commissions for that clip?
So first of all, you have to clarify with YouTube. But then there's no going around that. But I think the more important part here, like I told Mr. Anil the other day, was that when you're dealing with NFTs or pieces of content that you're buying for ownership. So sure, you can't let people, you can't stop people from creating pirated content. I think all these years, I think no one has been able to stop pirated content. You can't expect NFTs to come in and change that. But on the other hand, anytime you have like commercial, you see people making commercial decisions using your content, or profiting off of the piece of content that you own, but you're not getting paid some royalty or licensing fee for that. I think there's obviously some kind of legal course that can be taken there. So it also acts as a deterrent if you want to illegally use content like that.
There's no shortcut to that. So this doesn't solve all the fundamental problems then.
I mean, I think those will always stay there.
I agree.
It's
and Raksha, sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
Raksha Jaswani has a question, and she's a great artist that we all know of, and I'm a happy buyer of some of her paintings as well. So she has a question. She says, how does one approach converting a digital art into NFT?
Yeah, I think the process is fairly simple, right? You have whatever piece of content you've created, a JPEG file may it be MP3, MP4, whatever. You can go to one of the platforms. So I think Rarible is a great platform. You can do it yourself. You don't need any kind of, you don't need any kind of license. You don't need to go through any middleman or anything. You can go to the platform on board there. You need to hold some crypto before you do that. Because crypto is the asset that they use to mint stuff, to pay these gas fees, as we call them. So you need to have some of those in your wallet, in your digital wallet. But then besides that, you can just go and do it yourself. Like I'm sure they have like great explainers on how to do it.
Is Ethereum also somebody who offers this facility that you could go there, have a digital wallet, have some crypto to get your content NFT secured, so to say, and then create a portfolio that you could perhaps put on an online gallery on an online marketplace?
Yeah, absolutely. So Ethereum is the blockchain, and it accrues like, I think it consists 98%, I would say, of all of the NFTs, all the value that's being created by NFTs live on Ethereum, and all of the applications on it.
Sorry. So you were saying which is the first stop for Raksha in that case?
I would recommend checking out Rarible.
Rarible, right? Okay, Rarible.
Yeah.
Yes, got you. Understood. Yeah. So while we wait for any other question that may come, and we just have maybe 5 minutes, but I have a couple of them as well. So do you foresee, and this is going back to one of the other questions I think Rakesh Gupta had. So do you foresee NFT kind of getting into mainstream applications? Does it have any application in educational certificates, work experience, medical record, anything else, or in India, for example, with the Aadhaar card or PAN cards or any such, how do you see this coming into the mainstream with public use? And is that an opportunity for companies in India, for example?
100%. So again, I think the best way to illustrate my point would be for you guys to just go back. I can send you guys all the project names that I'm talking about. But in Singapore, there's a project called Accredify that's working with the government really to put up all of these medical certificates or medical documentation and history on the blockchain, but then it's private. So like it's all cryptographically secured, encrypted, so that not everyone can see your medical data. But if you have the right kind of private key, then you can obviously access this data. Education certificate is a big one as well. I think there have been tons of kind of scammy incidences, like incidences of scams where people have given wrong certifications or whatnot. So yeah, that this is also something that it can definitely solve. And I think there was something else that I might have missed out.
No, I'm saying, for example, like Aadhaar, I was saying, or PAN card, is that what Polygon is also probably into? You're referring to Polygon in your...
Polygon is just like an infrastructure layer project.
Oh, okay. Understand. So, for example, you also referred to the play to earn model. Is that similar to what we see with fantasy sports and Dream11 and some of these? Is it the same?
Yeah, so I like to say that it's a little bit of that, but then on steroids. It's exactly that, but on steroids, because you're owning like the character that you play with, the weapons that you equip your characters with. You actually own them, not the company. Yeah.
Understand. Sure. I think we have time for just one last question from our Vice President Suresh Raju. He says, looks like anything unique could be an NFT, like art, piece of, or price of NFT is what the buyer is willing to pay. So are there any ways to determine authenticity and fair value of NFT for novices?
Yeah, no, this is actually a very big problem that we're like a lot of the projects are trying to solve. I actually have a great article addressing this exact question coming out, I think maybe tomorrow. I'll be sure to like if that's of interest, I can distribute that as well. But yeah, so fair valuation, appraisal systems, I think it's a big question mark, and it is so for any illiquid asset. Like NFTs, as you correctly pointed out. A lot of people are using these indexing mechanisms. So it's like an index fund of an ETF, for example, and then the price of that is basically you try to put all the similar kinds of NFTs in that, and then you track the floor price of that, the price of that ETF itself, and that should give you the average price of an NFT in that index or any index you might hold. So that's like an appraisal system. There's a fractionalization system, which is a little bit meta. And it's counterintuitive if you think about it, but it's a great way to get that fair valuation, which is that you deposit an NFT and then you fractionalize it to get like fungible tokens out of it, which can be traded like in the normal marketplace. And then the price of that token multiplied by the total supply gives you the market cap or the valuation of that NFT. So yeah, that's something that people are working on. It's still in highly experimental stages, but I think there are some projects who are doing this, who are starting to get real traction solving this problem.
Wonderful. So thanks so much, Ishanee. Hopefully, again, we'll probably try and come back to you for another session on some of these other cutting edge technologies. DeFi continues to ring in my mind, so maybe another session on that and social tokens and everything else that we'd like to know more from you. It was a great session. Thank you. It's a 101 for many of us. And if I may just remind the viewers, TiE requires you to please share your feedback. The link is here, and I think you'll probably get that link on your phones as well. So thanks everybody for joining in. Wonderful questions, and thanks again, Ishanee. Excellent session, and we look forward to the column that's going to come out tomorrow, and we'll keep in touch. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks a
Have a
lot.
good night.
Thanks
Okay,
for
bye
having
then.
me. Bye.
Bye then.